All right, welcome back. Thank you guys for sticking through me through this series of videos. I didn't realize that this would take this long, but there's a lot to say about the planets and the rulerships and things of that nature. So we're moving on to Mars. Okay, so Mars is the planet of aggression, of assertion, of sex, of combat. It's the planet of conflict as well. It's also the planet of, when I say combat, that could literally mean like the military, fighting and things like that. Mars is an aggressive energy. It's a masculine energy. It also has to do with how you take action. You know what I'm saying? It has to do with your fight and like your willpower and things of that nature. So we're going to get up into Mars and it's going to be pretty interesting, you all. So just like Venus, Mars has two rulers. So Mars rules Aries, and Mars also rules Scorpio. For those who didn't know, Mars is actually the traditional ruler for Scorpio. So with Mars and Aries in particular, Mars ruling Aries, it's like that's what Aries represents, you know, aggression, conflict, but they also are a go-getter. They also are a leader. So Mars and Aries represents the leader. I would say it represents, you know, like a diva, like a boss woman and stuff like that, or a boss man and things of that nature. This is not the type of person that's going to let somebody step all over them. This is going to be somebody that's going to be in control of their destiny and things like that. This is a great place for Mars to be for achieving your goals, like in life as far as career are concerned and things like that. Again, you have to take this rulership with a grain of salt because a Mars in Aries still can produce a very like violent person. Same with Mars in Scorpio. Hypersexual, particularly with the Mars in Scorpio, very hypersexual. Also, physical activity is very strong with Mars in Aries and Mars in Scorpio. So very athletic. You'll find a lot of athletes that will probably have like a Mars in Aries or Mars in Scorpio. Mars in all the fire signs, but I'm specifically talking about the rulers. So, but Mars in Aries will produce somebody who likes to work out a lot, who likes to, you know, like play football maybe, or basketball. Mars in Scorpio, since Scorpio is all about the intensity and like experiencing things in its fullest capacity possible. You know, Mars in Scorpio might be the cross-country runner, or they might be like the person who does like the bodybuilding, you know, and that's like their form of that's their sport that they're in, you know. So it's kind of a different take on Mars a little bit, because Mars in Scorpio is just more intense and Mars in Aries is more about, it's more quick, it's more, you know, the sprinter, whereas Mars in Scorpio is the cross country, the long distance, the marathon runner. But both Mars in Scorpio and Mars in Aries would be very typically athletic people, people that keep themselves in shape. That energy is very keen with Mars in Aries or Mars in Scorpio. Now, this may not apply to you, and that may be because of other factors in your chart, but that's typically how Mars in Aries and Mars in Scorpio kind of play out. So with Mars ruling Aries, that means that it is in its detriment in what? Libra. Are you figuring it out now? The opposites and everything. So Mars is in detriment in Libra because Mars is about taking action, and Libra energy is so goddamn indecisive. They can't make up their mind. So how are you going to take action if you can't make up your mind? Like Mars in Libra, whoo, child. It is just like, don't ever ask a Mars in Libra person to like help you with a decision. Just don't do it. Don't do it. You're not going to get a straight answer. It might not even want to ask a Mars and Libra a question, because you're going to get this and that and the third and all of that stuff. So you kind of got to think about what that means. Like, it can be good in terms of if you have a lot of like strong like factors in your chart, like strong masculine energy. Like for instance, if you're like a sun in Aries and maybe a Mars in Libra, that can kind of like balance that out a little bit. But Mars and Libra energy in general is not a real happy place for Mars, because Mars can't really express its individuality. Again, we're talking about individuality in Mars because it still is about your identity. It is about your name and, you know, making a name for yourself. And Mars in Libra is about others, and it's about getting that satisfaction and that kind of feeding off of others type of thing. So that's why it's difficult for a Mars and Libra person to take action with what they want to do in life, their career, you know, their relationships. Like if you're a Mars and Libra man, you might be the type of man that needs a woman to approach you. And women just typically aren't going to do that. So you kind of have to like get over yourself a little bit, especially if it's badly aspected, then that's not going to be really good, especially for a man in particular. So definitely make sure that you think about that. And what else is important about a Mars in Libra? Mars in Libra is so like concerned with being fair that they forget about like having a stance. You know what I'm saying? Like Aries energy is like a very matter of fact, very, you know, like I believe this, let's go do this. You know what I'm saying? Mars in Libra, you're going to be sitting there like looking at menus on Grubhub for like an hour because a Mars and Libra can't figure out what they want to eat. So just think about that. But Mars and Libra, nevertheless, very charming, you know, very sociable, you know, very, you know, would be typically nice to look at. You know, they care about their appearance, like Libra energy. Just when it comes to taking action, it's just not their forte. It's just not, you know, their forte. So with Mars ruling Scorpio, Mars is in detriment, in detriment also in Taurus. And that really just has a lot to do with Taurus just being very slow and very much about the steady pace. It's the, you know, the story of the tortoise and the hare. Mars in Cancer is the tortoise, you know, it's just inching there. And Mars is really about like, take action, take it, get it. And Mars and Taurus is just going to kind of be moseying along. Like Mars and Taurus is like, I'm going to get there, but I'm going to just take it slow. And that can kind of turn people off in terms of you like being this go-getter and you like going after something. That Mars and Taurus energy can kind of bring that energy down, you know, like, cause the Mars, particularly a Mars in Aries, is very energetic, very exuberant, very full of life. Whereas a Mars in Taurus, you're not really going to see their like drive as much, because Mars has to deal with drive as well. And things like that. With the slow pace of that Mars and Taurus, it's going to be, it's just going to take a lot longer for them to get to their goal. They still may get there, but it's going to take longer to do that. So I would say Mars and Taurus is not like such a bad place per se, but just in terms of like the fiery nature of Mars, like somebody who has a Mars like in a fire sign dealing with a Mars in Taurus, it's just going to be, it's kind of not going to mesh well. Oh, I forgot to mention in reference to the sexual aspect, because I mentioned that Mars in Aries and Mars in Scorpio especially can be pretty hypersexual, and Mars has to deal with sex. So Mars in Taurus may actually be kind of good because they're going to take their time and, you know, be slow and steady. Mars in Libra also, it's about the give and take. It's about the reciprocation, reciprocity, with Mars in Libra. Again, with Mars in Taurus, Taurus energy is very sensual. So when you put Mars with that, instead of being that like aggressive, like, you know, bam type of Aries, it's more of that like slow and steady, you know, like kind of sensual type of thing. So, I would say that's kind of the good aspect of a Mars and Taurus. I would think that Mars and Taurus would be pretty decent with money, but you may miss out on opportunities to make money because you're so slow. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you gotta take action when it's there. And because Taurus energy is very, methodical and likes to plan and things like that. I know this because I'm a Taurus sun. You might miss out on these, opportunities. And when it comes time to take action, you might not be ready, or you may not think that you're ready because you're not prepared, when really that was the most opportune time for you to take advantage of, that opportunity. So you kind of got to keep that in mind with Mars and Taurus. They may, lose out on some great opportunities because of being too slow or being too scared or too cautious and things like that. Because like I said before, Mars has to deal with taking action and being that leader and like taking a chance, taking a risk and things like that. And Taurus not about that life. Taurus energy is more complacent than that. So that's where Mars can kind of fall short in Taurus. So let's talk about the exaltation. So Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So this is really good, especially because Mars does have to do with work. So Capricorn is the sign of business. So work, 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 work. You see me, I be work, 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 work. So Mars in Capricorn is going to be a very diligent, hard worker. They're going to be working their way to the top. And unlike a Mars in Taurus, where Tauruses are so slow, Capricorn energy is about the steady climb, but Capricorns are going to have a more aggressive spirit about that, because Capricorns are all about making a name, because Mars has to do with their name, making a name for themselves and building a legacy. And, like building a fortune, like building a business and stuff like that. Capricorn energy is all about building and things. So with Mars being exalted in Capricorn, it's like a really great place for you to be able to accomplish your dreams and things like that in a practical way, as opposed to kind of like a Mars in Aries, which would be, like more, spontaneous and things like that. Whereas a Mars in Capricorn kind of takes the qualities of, that fiery Mars and that slow and steady Taurus, and in my opinion, it kind of puts them into one, nice little presentation of a Mars in Capricorn. So Mars and Capricorn are going to also have a pretty high sex drive as well. They're going to make great leaders and great bosses. They're going to want to be the boss. It wouldn't probably be fitting for them to just be a regular employee. They're going to want to own their own business and everything like that. So a Mars in Capricorn is a go-getter with a plan. I just came up with that, but I like that term. A Mars in Capricorn is a go-getter with a plan. So I think that's why a Mars in Capricorn is a great place and it excels. Again, take it with a grain of salt. It depends on other factors in your chart. But a Mars in Capricorn person is very likely to succeed, especially career-wise, because Capricorn has to deal with your career and what they plan on doing in their life. So I got a lot to say about Mars being in the fall in Cancer. So I'm actually going to stop this video and start up a new one because, whoo child, it's going to be something. So I'll see you in the next video.